Hello dear viewers, before we start the video, I just want to remind you that I am making a 10,000 subscriber Q&A video. If you would like to participate in asking me or our wonderful voice actor HornedOwl some questions, then be sure to leave a comment. Okay, now let's get to the video. So, the general consensus behind the wheel tank destroyer strategy is that it's kind of hard to pull off. And after 10 years of War from the Ground Forces being out, players can take one look at any particular vehicle there is in the game and immediately determine whether a tank is easy to play or not. But what if that isn't the case? What if a wheel tank destroyer can be just as effective as any MBT yet still give off the illusion of a helpless wheeled vehicle? Well, if you don't believe me, then I'd like to introduce to you the AMX-10RC. So before getting to the nitty-gritties, I'd like to ask you a question. How many AMX-10RC have you seen in a ground RB battle?
Not that many. I think it is universally agreed upon that the AMX-10RC just kinda, sucks. Like, why don't you go play Sweden instead?
Oh, shut the fuck up, Sweden main! Anyways, your answer to that question is probably ranging from either 1 to 2 every 10 battles or none at all. And that simply boils down to two possibilities. One, no one in their right mind knows how to play this thing, so they don't play it. And two, you never see them until it's too late. You see, the AMX-10RC suffers the same issue as every other light tank in the game, and that is a deadly disease called no-armoritis, which is a very lethal disease as it makes your vehicle deathly allergic to things like heavy machine gun fires, artillery strikes, and of course, casts.
Okay, so where are you going with this? Is this gonna be the same thing as the M1128 Striker?
Oh no, the Striker is one thing, but there's one thing that you forgot.
And what might that be?
Well, besides the fact that it's my favorite tank, and I say the word tank in heavy quotation marks, the AMX-10RC comes with a lot of abilities and features that most wheeled tank destroyers and even regular tanks at around the BR of 8.3 doesn't have. So let's take a look at them one at a time. So as per usual, we're going to start off the analysis with the mobility. The AMX-10RC is quite unique when compared with other wheeled vehicles in the game. The first big difference we can see comes from the drivetrain. Unlike most vehicles, which are usually in the 8-wheel configuration, we can see that the AMX-10RC has instead 6 wheels. And looking at its power plant, we quickly come to the realization that it's nothing crazy, as the engine found on the AMX-10RC produces the same if not less power than the engines we found on most other wheel tank destroyers, being around the 200 to 400 horsepower range. But then we move on to their powertrain, which is where it gets very interesting and very quick. The transmission of the AMX, unlike most others where it only allows it to travel in one direction quickly, it allows the AMX-10RC to travel the same speed both forward and backwards. And unlike most wheeled vehicles, they also come equipped with a hydro-pneumatic suspension system, which allows you to add just a little more to your 8 degrees of gun depression. And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. Depending on how high your ground clearance is, it can actually affect your mobility. When your suspension is raised all the way up, you are at your most mobile, but you sacrifice gun handling. But if you lower it all the way down, you will be at your most sluggish, but you will have the smoothest gun handling. And there's one more secret that the stat card doesn't tell you about the transmission, and that is, unlike most other wheel tank destroyer platforms, you can neutral traverse. Why is that so important, you ask? Well, the ability to neutral traverse gives the AMX-10RC an ability every other tank destroyer lacks, and that is the ability to make micro adjustment when it comes to positioning. Alright, so here's an example. Let's say we put the AMX-10RC and the Centauro in the same situation. Let's say you reach a firing position that you desire, but oh no, you don't like how your hull is positioned for whatever reason, and you want to make adjustments to your positioning. In a situation like that, a traditional wheeled tank destroyer will have to execute a parallel parking maneuver just to get its hull around. Meanwhile, the AMX-10RC can just traverse like a normal tank would.
Alright, I have to admit, that is pretty handy. But you're an unstabilized aluminum box on wheels at a BR where you fight stabilized MBT on an instant basis. How will something like this ever be competitive in an environment like that?
Oh yeah, firepower. Let's talk about that next. So the AMX-10RC, as we all know, suffers from the same problem as most French tank of its BR range, and that is a lack of stabilizer. But just because this thing lacks a stabilizer doesn't mean it's completely unusable. However, it doesn't mean your life won't be hell, as one pebble on the road will be enough to make you send your round into low Earth orbit. The AMX-10RC at the battle rating of 8.3 comes with a very generous amount of firepower and a very modern fire control system for the battle rating. So let's take a look at its cannon first. The AMX-10RC, like most NATO tanks, comes equipped with a 105mm gun, but unlike its NATO brethren, it is a rifled 105 instead of a smoothbore. The 105mm Model F2 cannon is quite unique, as it is not quite chambered in the standard NATO 105 by 617mm shells. But instead, the AMX takes a unique French 105 by 527mm medium pressure shell. But don't be fooled, the OFL 105 F3 APF SDS packs quite a mean punch. Let's compare the OFL 105 F3 to something of the same BR. For this comparison, we'll be using the T55A's 3BM25 APF SDS shell. From a glance, the 3BM25 is clearly the winner, right? Considering it has 335mm of pen at point blank instead of the 325 found on the OFL 105 F3. But that number is irrelevant. As we look closely, we can see that the OFL 105 F3's penetration falloff at range is a lot better than the values found on the 3BM25.
Wait. In the last video, didn't you literally say that every bit of penetration matters, especially with weak spots becoming smaller and smaller?
Yes, I did say that, but there's one thing that you forgot.
And that is?
Composite armor does not exist in this BR. And no, I'm not joking. The AMX-10RC at the battle rating of 8.3 rarely sees tank that has composite armor. And the only tank that we have to worry about ever seeing is the T-72A and the T-64A. But although they're a tough nut to crack, they forgot one thing. Your shell weighs 3.8 kilograms, and that means your round spalling performance is going to be above average, meaning that if you manage a penetration, it is almost a guaranteed kill. Moving on from the gun, the AMX-10RC also comes equipped with a fire control system that not even most 9.7 tanks have. And what is that, you might be asking? At the battle rating of 8.3, you get a fully functioning laser rangefinder and a Generation 1 thermals. Yes, you heard me right. The AMX-10RC gets thermals.
That's neat and all, but how do you play this thing?
Well, am I glad that you asked. Let's get to that and wrap this thing up. The AMX-10RC, like many vehicles of its class, lacks the armor to play aggressively. And thanks to the lack of a stabilizer, that makes the possibility of playing aggressive in this vehicle practically zero. But that is not what the AMX-10RC is designed for. Like most vehicles in existence, War Thunder players can somehow find the wrong use for them. Like a good example being War Thunder players turning anything and everything into a turn fighter for some reason. The AMX-10RC was designed to be a lightly armored and highly mobile scout tank that also packs a big punch. So let's play this tank in the role that it was designed for. A highly agile and deadly scouting element and a tank destroyer. Don't be shy and use the mobility this vehicle grants you to reach a good spot in the early game and completely negate the need for a stabilizer by performing hit and run attacks. And also remember to put your hydropneumatic suspension to use, as that will make your life much easier in a situation where hard cover is a commodity. And remember, terrain is your best friend, so play around that and utilize it to the best of your ability. So get out there and show those German mains that when a good French player is in the same lobby, War Thunder 2 can be a horror game.